Welcome to the Polite Conversations podcast, where every episode is focused on civility, decorum, and good manners. And I'm your lovable, non-controversial host, Ina. If you know me, you know I definitely don't like to ruffle any feathers at all. Hey, dear listeners, just wanted to give you a bit of a sense on where I'm at these days. It's been several months since I said I was going to be putting out more content in the hopes of increasing Patreon support. I launched a whole new miniseries, the one on the global far right. I revived an older miniseries on which Sam Harris has really made sure I have my work cut out for me by pumping out so much fucking bullshit at a pace unlike ever before. Aside from that, I've been recording way more regular episodes of Polite Conversations and more of the after show, and I think I've really put everything I've got into it. I have never marketed it so much before, posted on so many different apps, posted previews and clips. I've quadrupled the amount of content I put out at a minimum, and it's been about 5 full months of doing this, and in the first month, September of last year, things were looking pretty good. There was a bit of a bump in support, and I thought, hey, if this is how things are going to go every month, the projection is, looking good. Like I can keep things going in the longer term at this pace. And it certainly did buy me some time. So that was definitely helpful and much, much appreciated. But I don't know what happened after that first month. I don't know if it's because since October, I've been focusing on content related to the atrocities that we're seeing every day committed against Palestinians. And some of my listeners are either not feeling the same sense of urgency that I am, or they prefer that I would focus on other things, or maybe some think criticism of Israel is unacceptable. I don't know. But that's not something I can change or compromise on, because I think the scale of what we're witnessing streamed right into our phones is unlike anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. So I think it's extremely important for me to focus on that right now because, for one, it's the right thing to do, I believe, and I couldn't see myself remaining silent on it. But also, since the IDW types are putting out genocide apologetics and propaganda, so it really falls into my regular scope of topics too. But September was good, and the months since have not really moved the needle. I can't say why. I've really tried so hard to make this work because I am passionate about pushing back against right-wing narratives, especially when they're cloaked as other things. And I do think there's genuinely very little robust pushback to all the fascism exploding everywhere currently, to all the levels of garbage views and bigotry legitimization. And I think there's not enough diverse voices in podcasting. So yeah, I'm truly invested in doing this. I think people need to hear different kinds of perspectives. But unfortunately, if you spread the amount of work I'm doing, the amount of hours I'm putting in, over the level of income it generates, I'm not even making minimum wage from the podcast. So I've thought about it, and I don't think I can keep putting out 4 times the work for basically the same pay. And I can't put things out as fast as podcasts with multiple hosts do because I am just one person. And I know, believe me, I know times are tough. They are for everyone, and it really sucks. But aside from that, there's also the feeling of not wanting to pay for digital content. Because with ad-based monetization, we tend to think we get a lot of it for quote-unquote free anyway. But many of the topics I deal with aren't exactly too monetizable. Certainly not criticism of Israel, definitely not talking about different kinds of fascism. So I don't run ads on my show, and the listener funding is basically the only thing that keeps it afloat. And it's not just me either. It's been super depressing to see over the past little while several lefty content creators closing doors, saying it's no longer sustainable. And I thought that was probably the smaller content creators, but the other day I heard on Majority Report too that they're having a quote-unquote dry spell. It's a really rough time out there. If it's affecting them, what chance is there for much smaller shows like mine? Like, I cannot overstate how incredibly shitty a time it is to be a left-leaning content creator. Elon Musk has single-handedly screwed over so many people with what he's turned Twitter into. I've lost at least 1,000 followers in the last little while to the mass exodus. And of course, I'm not blaming anyone at all for leaving that hell site. Completely understandable. But obviously that kind of exodus mostly affects the left, who are most opposed to the Nazification of Twitter. Like, it was bad before, but it's like official policy now with promoted Nazi ads and shit. Anyway, as a result, it's like it's a ghost town. There's really no one left to engage with the content I post, or at least it feels like that to me. So many of my friends are gone from Twitter, and no other app has really taken its place either. There's nowhere that everyone really gathers anymore. Some are here, some are there, so it's not quite the same. And again, I don't blame anyone for wanting to run as far as possible from the hell site. Me personally, I feel like I don't want to leave the whole thing to varying degrees of right-wingers so they can say and promote whatever they want unchallenged. So that's why I'm still there, but that's a whole other conversation. Anyway, when you spend days and days working on something and you put it out there and there's barely anyone to engage with it, unlike before, and like I've truly seen a massive change, it just feels super demoralizing. Like, what is even the point of working so hard? It is, of course, a great time to be a right-winger. To see those accounts flourish is really something. Also, perpetually a great time to be a centrist doing the right's bidding. So it really begins to eat away at you, you know? When you see, like, even mediocre podcast bros involved in creepy-ass Me Too situations even, manipulating those situations to inflate their Patreons and literally being rewarded, it really makes you think about what exactly is incentivized in our wonderful creator economy. Unfortunately, it's all the wrong things. That's why we live in a world where Jordan B. Peterson continues to grow his audience the more unhinged he gets. That's why the more reactionary an ex-Muslim is, the more they are propped up and given bigger platforms. There's almost no point, it feels like, to try and push back against these things. And during a genocide that is getting so much support in the mainstream, with the constant gaslighting and blatant hypocrisy, it feels really depressing. That's, of course, not to say that I do not appreciate all the wonderful patrons that continue to support my work and the listeners that consume the podcast too. Thank you all so much for helping the podcast stay afloat all these years. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm completely giving up and closing shop. I'm not. I am far too stubborn and opinionated to completely, immediately shut things down like that. I'm just winding things down a bit. The projects that take me the most time to produce are the miniseries, and I know a lot of people enjoy them, but I can't keep producing them even at the pace that I do, because simply I'm not able to afford it with things costing double or triple of what they did just a few months ago, and me putting in so much more work than before, but not really making much more than where I started in September. It's just not sustainable. So I will have to, regrettably, significantly reduce the miniseries output, at least for now. I will still do them, but not how I was doing them regularly each month. I mean, unless there is more support, I need to just think about freeing up my time and finding other work that will pay for the hours that I put in. I have considered putting the podcast entirely just on Patreon, but I'm not sure. I'm still thinking about it. All that said, I did try, dear listeners, for almost half a year. So while this is definitely not the end, I will start winding things down a bit and freeing up some time to do other things. I hope that update wasn't too much of a downer. Again, I'm so grateful for all of you who have supported via Patreon. It really means more than you know. Or, hey, even supporting just via listening or retweeting. And I wanted to let you know that your engagement really matters. It can really help. Podcast reviews really help. So if you can't support via Patreon, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your comments matter, your retweets matter. It all matters more than you realize, because it makes me, for one, feel less like I'm talking into vast emptiness, and that is motivating. But it also boosts the post itself. And since we are all now at the mercy of our tech overlords, the algorithms, etc., that engagement is just what we have to feed the podcast gods in order to survive. Again, to reiterate, this isn't over. This isn't me quitting. Things could change, as I say all the time now. If you would like to help the show survive, literally, please consider supporting via patreon.com/Nice Mangoes, because the situation is urgent. And from now on, if there isn't much change, we'll just be going at a slower pace, I guess, with less miniseries, but we'll still be going. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Thank you all for listening. That is it from me for now. I have been noting that Sam is putting out mountains of stuff that I need to comment on, so don't worry. It will come eventually and sooner for patrons. I am working on it. That's it. Till next time, folks. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support it, there are several ways you can do that. You can share it online, talk about what you just heard. You can leave a 5-star review to help others find it too. And you can also subscribe via patreon.com/Nice Mangoes. No E in mangoes. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter before it's completely wrecked, you'll find me at Nice Mangoes. Again, no E in mangoes.